All right. So, Aaron, why are you interested in being an RA?
I feel that I can help the freshmen and whoever that I'm going to be in the rooms with simply by being a more stable and trustworthy source than a lot of the RAs they've had in the past. I don't want to denigrate the RAs that Pepperdine has chosen in the past, but I know a lot of the freshmen have the distinct feeling that RAs are out to get them, so to speak. And I feel that I can uphold Pepperdine's policies at the same time as being a much more reasonable and friendly character to the freshmen, and I think this would help their experience immensely. Secondly, I feel that the Lord has called me to lead in my life, and I have not had much chance to do that so far. I've been homeschooled, as I mentioned in my essays that I submitted, and this has not given me much chance to pursue a leadership position, and I feel that being an RA for Pepperdine University would give me a chance to pursue this calling in a dignified and spiritual manner.
In your opinion, what is the role of the RA?
The role of the RA is kind of twofold, again, as this was addressed in the essay. Number one, to simply hold up the values of Pepperdine University, not to be a policeman, so to speak, but more just to make sure that the students are following and are upholding Pepperdine University's standards at all times. Secondly, the role of the RA is to come alongside and help the students, whether it's spiritually, academically, socially. A lot of kids have a hard time adjusting to the university setting, and I feel that as an RA I could help this happen much more smoothly.
Now, if you have lived in the halls, which you have, haven't you?
Yes.
Describe what you have learned from living in whatever hall you live in.
In a nutshell, how to get along with people in tight spaces that you wouldn't necessarily hang out with in the first place. I've had all sorts of roommates and suite mates so far in very tight spaces. Currently I'm in Heidelberg, and there's 3 of us crammed into a very tiny room the size of most people's closets. And I think that the main thing I have learned is how to not let people bug me, and how to get along with all types of people, and just kind of do my own thing when I need to, and be social when I need to, and just be a working part of the academic and social community.
So far from your college experience, what needs do you believe that residents will rely on you most for?
As I mentioned earlier, my stability and kind of my not out to get themness, so to speak. I think that the freshmen would really appreciate an RA that is much more likely to sit them down and come alongside them and ask them how their life's going and what's going on and what they need prayer for and what I can be helping them with, than one that's busting in every weekend to do room checks, looking for alcohol under the beds, whatever it may be.
So, you mentioned that you have a relationship with Christ, and how would you describe your personal relationship with Jesus, and what does that look like for you?
In the past, I've been a fairly analytical person. I tend to read a lot of scripture, memorize a lot of scripture, study a lot of theology, but this hasn't translated into a personal relationship with Jesus for me until the last couple years. In the last couple years, I've been successful in establishing a Bible study in which I read the Bible and meditate on it every day, especially in the past year. This has helped me grow from a theoretical relationship with this deity, Jesus, a member of the Trinity, towards someone that helps me in everyday life, that I can come to anytime I need, that will support me, that will guide me, and that, as I mentioned in the essays, I went to the University Ministries retreat, and during one of the worship sessions, I came to the actual point of realizing that I love Jesus, which isn't something I'd ever done before. It had always been an academic, theoretical sort of thing. No, sorry. We're just working on an interview. Okay, go on. Next one.
Describe exactly how you would go about supporting the spiritual growth in your residents. As you mentioned, you had a spiritual growth moment when you were with How would you help that out with the students you'd be working with next semester?
I think one of the biggest problems in modern youth ministry is an attempt to make Jesus and religion so-called cool. I don't want to denigrate the Rob Bell, Mars Hill, etc. approach, but they tend to use really trendy videos, similar to things you would see on MTV, really nice graphics, really high budget, an attempt to draw the students in and make them identify with Jesus. I don't think this works. I think students see right through that, as they do with most advertising. To make spirituality relevant to the students that would be under my charge, I think the most effective way would be to form a small group that meets once a week, once every 2 weeks, whatever is necessary, where instead of bringing a formalized curriculum to them and going, this is what we're going to study, it would simply be an open discussion for whatever was going on in their life, whatever pressing needs they had, whatever they wanted to discuss. Whether it be directly spiritual or simply relating, it wouldn't matter. It would just be something where they could come and bring their needs and we could go over it in biblical light.
Very nice. How would you explain Pepperdine's community standard regarding alcohol to an incoming freshman? Or, for example, to a junior transfer?
Incoming freshmen, I would strongly encourage them to abstain from all alcohol whatsoever. This is obviously they won't be 21, and Pepperdine forbids all use of alcohol on or off campus to someone that's under 21. An incoming junior, however, may possibly be over 21, and in that case, it is his discretion whether he wants to drink in moderation off of campus. I would strongly encourage him to never attempt to sneak alcohol onto campus, as this can result in severe penalties. However, drinking off campus in moderation in private property is under his discretion, and I would encourage him to search the scriptures for what Jesus has to say about it and listen to his conscience.
All right, here's an example. You walk into a room. It's 5 minutes. You walk into a room 5 minutes after 1 a.m. and find a suite mate in violation of the visitation policy. Anticipate your suite mate's reaction and talk about how you would respond. And what are some important aspects to incorporate into your follow-up with your suite mate?
My response to this issue would depend on the situation I walked in upon. Often 5 minutes after the visitation hours are technically over, the guest in whoever's room is getting their coat on, tying their shoes, walking out the door. In this case, it's good to politely hurry them to the door and explain that next time they should be 5 minutes earlier. However, if they don't look like there's any chance of leaving, and they don't seem to be going about that in any sort of a timely fashion, then other steps are necessary. I think it would depend on the student's how their previous actions had played out, in whether I would immediately become harshly disciplinary. I would assume I would not the first time. Perhaps a simple write-up would not even be necessary. I do not know Pepperdine's exact policies for first, second time, etc. My reaction to their response would depend on what their response was. If I walked in and they freaked out and tried to hide something that was going on, obviously it would be a bigger deal. However, if they were forthcoming saying, well, they were just leaving, sorry, we didn't see the time, nothing really is going on, they're walking out the door, I think a much more lenient, well, maybe much more careful next time response would be encouraged. As for future follow-up, I think in either situation it is necessary that the student realizes that the rules are there for a purpose, and that just because they were late maybe perhaps 5 minutes one time doesn't mean that it's something that can happen all the time, and that if it happens again, maybe something more, a little stronger might have to occur. However, as I mentioned earlier, rather than simply being the bad guy RA who's out to write them up at any possible juncture, I think it's more important to look at what's going on with the student. I mean, was the guest over there in an inappropriate manner? If so, maybe that's an issue going on with their life that needs to be addressed, and maybe they just want someone to talk to about that. And was it simply an innocent mistake? It will all depend on the circumstances.
Okay. So moving on to your personal life, what do you do to deal with stress in your life?
Mostly alone time. If I'm feeling really stressed about an exam, I'll often take an hour and just put on some headphones and go down to the track and run, or go for a walk, or maybe sit and read a book that I'm not required to read. Just walk out, sometimes just go out and pray. Obviously, the answer that everyone's looking for is prayer, and yes, that is a way to deal with stress, but in interest of being real, I also choose exercise